Good morning. How are we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka Split Suit. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to review a hand sent in by Floki360. This was posted on the Red Chip Poker Discord. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so this is from 10 no limit 6 max online. Button decides to open to 2.5x. Small blind folds. Here decides to 3-bet. And the only information that Floki gave us is that button is about 27, 22 and seems like kind of a reg. So that's what we're working with right here. As for the 3-bet, totally standard. As for the size, totally standard. Everything is looking really good and pretty typical so far. But decides to call. We go heads up to a flop of 10-9-3 rainbow, and now we have a decision to make. So let's just talk about this from kind of a big picture standpoint for a moment. So when we are the 3-better, we are typically looking for flops that have at least one high card and not too much mid-range coordination. So in this situation, this flop just simply isn't that great for us, right? It's not really hitting either of those things. Now, it could definitely be worse, right? There could be a flush draw on the board. That 3 could be more tightly coordinated to the board, like obviously an 8 or a 7 or a 6, something like that. So that would add even more coordination to the overall board. But just in general, this is not the worst flop, but it's definitely not the absolute best flop for us either. So one option here is certainly just to take the c-betting approach, fire here for roughly 1/3 pot, and if you get called, plan on barreling pretty much anything jack or higher on the turn, since that's either going to give you top pair on the turn or it's going to give you a straight draw on the turn. And just in general, in situations like this, when you have kind of that 2-card backdoor Broadway gut shot draw like we do here, since any king or jack down the back door gives us that extra equity, that could be a really good indicator that c-betting is at least a reasonable idea rather than just always taking the check approach. Again, it's much better here than it would be if that 3 were something like a 7 of diamonds or something like that, but definitely something to consider when you're looking at how reasonable is a c-bet on those textures that aren't exactly the most favorable in the world for you. Now, with all of that being said, Floki does decide to just check in this situation, and honestly, checking can be fine. Checking could actually be best in this scenario as well. If we open up the solver real quick, this is GTO Plus, and we look at the decision on the flop. And just for the record, if you're interested what ranges we used, I used the ones from the Pro. So these are the button raises. We're in the big blind. What do we 3-bet with? And then what are they going to call the 3-bet with versus 4-bet with? So in case you're wondering where those ranges are coming from. But if we're looking at this situation, like looking at the bets, we see that the ace-queen combos are, about half and half, give or take, between betting and checking. And if we look at our exact combination, which is what ace of spades, queen of diamonds, then you notice that that is, a little bit more betting than checking, but still it's kind of in that like 50-50-ish range. So this is one of those where even the solver can be on board with just checking this some of the time, good chunk of the time, and then betting it some chunk of the time as well. So the solver is kind of in alignment with, it's not 100% clear cut that this is always a bet or always a check. And again, checking is reasonable and can certainly be something to do. But when our opponent decides to check behind on the flop, this is where things get really important, especially after the turn is an 8 and hero decides to check again. But let's talk about what we should actually be thinking about on the turn instead of just taking a default check flop check turn approach. So once the flop goes check check, we find ourselves in what's called a delay c-bet opportunity. And these are something you definitely want to be on the lookout because they are extremely lucrative. From the general player pool analysis that we've done, players just do not play well and defend correctly against delayed c-bets, even in 3-bet pots, which means our plan here, just in general, should be to fire this delay c-bet and even expect a profitable follow-up bet if they call the delay c-bet. If we fire the river, we should expect that to be a profitable barrel as well. So this is just a spot where we should definitely 100% be firing and not just checking here. And if we can expect to fire any 2 cards profitably here with our ace-queen, this is just a massive bonus since we have the gut shot, we also have some overcards. This is all very, very good stuff for us, and again, it leads us right in the direction of taking a fire approach as opposed to checking. So as played, hero does decide to check, button decides to fire for a little over half pot, and hero decides to check fold. And this is really unfortunate because we're just taking our chunk of equity and just completely not actualizing any of it, and ace queen could even still be the best hand on the turn as well. So it's not to say that like check calling here is necessarily going to be great or anything, or even massively incorrect, but just rather thinking about your options here, right? Delay c-bet the turn yourself, or just check and then make a decision. you face any bet, you're not super thrilled, you're not actualizing your equity all the way either, and you're just inviting stabs like so often. So again, like comparing your overall options here, a delay c-bet should work out much more profitably. Honestly, even if you had any two random cards here, this would still be a good spot to consider a delay c-bet and even consider a river barrel. Maybe not exactly with our ace queen, simply because this is a spot where if they decide to say call your delay c-bet and the river is whatever, you could still go check and win a decent chunk against other high card hands or busted draws, that kind of stuff. So maybe with this specific combo, we don't feel we have to go for the delay c-bet plus follow-up bet. But as played here, delay c-betting is going to be so much more profitable than just check folding. Unfortunately, all of our equity just goes right down the trash when we decide to make that play. It is what it is, but let's try to make sure we make a better c-betting decision with better rationale in the future, and also really heavily look at those delay c-bets, because again, those can be extremely lucrative. And as we're wrapping up here, if you are interested in learning more about that software we used earlier, that is called GTO Plus. It's an excellent solver, and we have a great bundle put together for you over on RedChip Poker if you're interested. redchippoker.com/GTO to learn more, get a lifetime license to the software, as well as a complete course showing you how to get everything you need out of this very powerful tool. Again, redchippoker.com/GTO to learn more. But for this one, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Floki, for sending this hand in. If anyone has any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. And of course, a thumbs up would be massively appreciated. Look forward to seeing you guys over on the Discord soon. And without further ado, I'll leave you to it. Good luck out there, and happy grinding.